My twin sister Clara always had the fairy tale life. Perfect grades, perfect boyfriend, and now the perfect wedding, all thanks to our parents' generous support. But as I watched her glide down the aisle, a secret I'd been keeping burned in my chest, threatening to shatter everything. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the meticulously manicured lawn of our childhood home in Willow Creek, Ohio. It was a picture-perfect scene, the kind you'd find on a postcard. White picket fence, a gentle breeze rustling the leaves of the ancient oak tree in the front yard, and the faint scent of freshly cut grass hanging in the air. But inside, the atmosphere was anything but serene. A low hum of nervous energy vibrated through the house, a prelude to the storm that was brewing in my chest. My name is Scarlett, and today was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, my twin sister Clara's wedding day. Clara had always been the golden child, the one who effortlessly excelled at everything she touched. She was beautiful, charismatic, and had a knack for charming everyone she met. Our parents, bless their hearts, had always doted on her, showering her with attention and opportunities. I, on the other hand, was the quieter, more introverted twin, content to live a life slightly out of the spotlight. Growing up, the differences between Clara and me were stark. While she was out at parties and school events, I preferred the company of books and quiet corners. She dreamed of a glamorous life filled with travel and excitement, while I found solace in the familiar routines of our small town. Our parents, though they loved us both, never quite understood my more reserved nature. They often encouraged me to be more like Clara, to step out of my shell and embrace the world with the same enthusiasm. Clara's engagement to Ethan was, in their eyes, the culmination of her perfect life. Ethan was handsome, successful, and came from a well-respected family in town. Our parents were ecstatic. They immediately offered to pay for the entire wedding, a lavish affair that Clara had been meticulously planning for months. No expense was spared. The most exclusive venue, a designer dress, a 5-star caterer, the works. It was the kind of wedding most girls only dreamed of. As the maid of honor, I had been involved in all the preparations, attending bridal showers, dress fittings, and countless planning meetings. I smiled and nodded, offering my congratulations and support. All the while a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach, because I knew something that could potentially derail this entire fairy tale. It had started about 6 months ago. I had run into Liam at the local coffee shop, a place I frequented for its strong coffee and quiet atmosphere. Liam was an old friend from high school, someone I hadn't seen in years. We had a brief but intense connection back then, a whirlwind romance that ended abruptly when he moved away for college. Seeing him again stirred up a mix of emotions: nostalgia, a hint of regret, and a spark of something more. We started talking again, catching up on each other's lives. He was back in town, working as a software engineer. We met for coffee a few more times, and soon our conversations stretched into long walks in the park and late-night phone calls. The connection we had shared years ago was still there, perhaps even stronger now. Then came the bombshell. One evening, over dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant, Liam confessed something that made my blood run cold. He told me that he had been seeing someone he was deeply in love with. He was planning to propose soon. I felt a pang of jealousy, a foolish hope I hadn't realized I was harboring crashing down around me. But then he said her name, Clara. My Clara. My twin sister who was already engaged to another man. I stared at him, dumbfounded. "Clara?" I managed to stammer out, my voice barely a whisper. Liam looked confused by my reaction. "Yes, Clara. You know her, right? She's amazing, Scarlett. We've been together for almost a year now. It all happened so fast, but I know she's the one." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. My mind raced, trying to process this impossible information. Clara and Liam? It didn't make any sense. Clara was head over heels for Ethan, or at least that's what she had always portrayed. They were the perfect couple, the envy of everyone in Willow Creek. But as I replayed the past few months in my head, little things started to fall into place. Clara had been spending more time out with friends than usual. She had been unusually secretive about her phone, always turning the screen away when I was around. And there were those late-night calls she would take in the hallway, her voice hushed and conspiratorial. I didn't want to believe it. Clara was my sister, my other half. We had shared everything growing up. How could she keep something like this from me? And Liam, he was a good guy, genuinely kind and sincere. He seemed completely unaware of Clara's engagement to Ethan. Over the next few weeks, I found myself caught in a terrible dilemma. Should I tell Clara what Liam had told me? Should I confront Liam about Clara's engagement? Or should I tell Ethan the truth, potentially ruining Clara's perfect wedding and shattering our family's happiness? The weight of the secret was crushing me. I couldn't sleep, my appetite vanished, and I found myself constantly on edge. I tried to talk to Clara, to broach the subject of her relationship with Ethan, but she would just smile and gush about how excited she was for the wedding. She seemed genuinely happy, and that made it even harder to believe that she was leading a double life. I also considered talking to Liam again, but I was afraid of what I might say, afraid of the pain I might cause. He seemed so genuinely in love with Clara, so completely oblivious to the other man in her life. As the wedding day drew closer, the pressure mounted. Our parents were buzzing with excitement, finalizing the last-minute details. Clara was radiant, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. And Ethan, he seemed like a genuinely good guy, completely devoted to Clara. He didn't deserve this. None of them did. The morning of the wedding arrived in a flurry of activity. Hair and makeup artists descended upon the house, transforming it into a temporary salon. My parents were bustling around, making sure everything was perfect. Clara was calm and collected, sipping champagne and laughing with her bridesmaids. I went through the motions, helping Clara get ready, adjusting her veil, offering words of encouragement. But inside, my heart was pounding. The secret was a heavy stone in my gut, and I knew I couldn't keep it to myself much longer. As Clara stepped into her stunning white gown, a vision of her walking down the aisle towards Ethan flashed through my mind. Could I really let this happen? Could I stand by and watch her marry one man while secretly being in love with another? The ceremony was scheduled for 3 o'clock at the beautiful St. Michael's Church downtown. As we piled into the limousine, the silence was thick with unspoken words. Clara squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with happiness. "I can't believe this day is finally here," she whispered. I forced a smile. "It's going to be perfect," I replied, my voice sounding hollow even to my own ears. At the church, the guests were already starting to arrive, dressed in their finest attire. Our parents greeted everyone with beaming smiles, their pride in Clara radiating from them. Ethan stood at the altar, looking handsome and slightly nervous. As the bridesmaids and I made our way down the aisle, my gaze kept drifting towards the back of the church. And then I saw him. Liam was standing near the entrance, his eyes fixed on Clara. He looked lost and uncertain, a stark contrast to the joyous atmosphere surrounding him. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and in that instant, I saw a flicker of understanding, a silent question in his gaze. He knew. Somehow he knew that something wasn't right. The music swelled as Clara began her walk down the aisle, her hand clasped in our father's. She looked breathtakingly beautiful, a vision of bridal perfection. But as she drew closer to the altar, I noticed something else in her eyes, a hint of nervousness, a fleeting shadow of doubt. My heart hammered in my chest. This was it, the moment of truth. I couldn't let her go through with this. I couldn't let Ethan be hurt, and I couldn't let Liam stand there, heartbroken and confused. Just as Clara reached the altar and our father placed her hand in Ethan's, I took a deep breath and made a decision. I had to say something. I had to tell the truth, no matter the consequences. I stepped forward, my voice trembling slightly but filled with a newfound resolve. "Clara," I said, my voice cutting through the hushed anticipation of the crowd. All eyes turned to me. Clara looked at me, her expression a mixture of surprise and confusion. Ethan frowned, and our parents exchanged worried glances. "Clara," I repeated, my voice gaining strength. "There's something you need to know. Something we all need to know." I paused, taking another deep breath, the weight of the secret finally lifting from my shoulders. The silence in the church was deafening, every eye fixed on me, waiting for my next words. "Clara," I began, my gaze locked on my sister's pale face. Liam told me." My voice trailed off as I saw a sudden shift in Clara's expression. Her eyes widened in panic, and a look of sheer terror washed over her face. It was as if she knew exactly what I was about to say. Before I could utter another word, Clara swayed slightly, her hand flying to her mouth. A low gasp escaped her lips, and then, to everyone's shock and confusion, she fainted, collapsing into Ethan's arms. The church erupted in chaos. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Our parents rushed to Clara's side, their faces etched with worry. Ethan looked bewildered, his arms wrapped around Clara's limp body. Liam, still standing at the back of the church, watched the scene unfold with a look of stunned disbelief on his face. As the commotion continued, I stood there, frozen in place, my heart pounding in my ears. I had tried to tell the truth, but Clara's dramatic collapse had effectively silenced me. What was happening? Was she really unconscious, or was this just another one of her masterful performances? And what would happen next? The fairy tale wedding had just taken a dark and unexpected turn, and I had a feeling that the real drama was only just beginning. The scene in the church was utter pandemonium. People were rushing forward, whispering anxiously, their faces a mixture of concern and morbid curiosity. Our parents were frantic, calling Clara's name, patting her face, their initial joy completely evaporated. Ethan, looking utterly lost, held Clara tightly, his eyes darting around as if searching for an explanation. I stood there, a strange mix of relief and apprehension washing over me. Relief that the secret was finally out in the open, albeit in a very dramatic fashion. Apprehension about the fallout, the storm that was undoubtedly about to break. Someone called for a doctor, and a few of the more level-headed guests helped to clear some space around Clara. After a few tense moments, she began to stir, her eyelids fluttering open. She looked disoriented, her gaze unfocused as she took in the worried faces surrounding her. What happened?" she murmured, her voice weak. "You fainted, darling," our mother said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Are you all right?" Clara slowly sat up, leaning against Ethan for support. She looked around the church, her eyes finally landing on me. There was a flicker of something in her gaze, not gratitude, not relief, but a cold, hard stare that sent a shiver down my spine. "Scarlet," she said, her voice surprisingly steady despite her recent collapse. "What were you about to say?" The air in the church seemed to thicken. All eyes were on me again, the earlier concern replaced by an intense anticipation. I knew this was my moment. I couldn't back down now. "I was about to say," I began, my voice clear and unwavering, "that Liam told me that he and Clara have been seeing each other for almost a year." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Our parents looked as if they had been struck by lightning. Ethan's face, which had been filled with concern just moments ago, now registered shock and disbelief. Clara's composure finally cracked. Her face paled, and her eyes darted nervously around the church. "That's not true!" she exclaimed, her voice shrill. "Scarlet is just trying to ruin my wedding!" I shook my head. "I have no reason to do that, Clara. I'm just telling the truth." I turned to Ethan, my heart aching for him. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to tell you." Ethan looked from me to Clara, his expression a mask of confusion and hurt. "Clara, is this true?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Clara's eyes welled up with tears, but they didn't look like tears of remorse. They looked like tears of anger and frustration. "Of course not, Ethan. Scarlet has always been jealous of me. She's making this up." Just then, Liam stepped forward, his face pale but his eyes filled with a quiet determination. "It's true, Ethan," he said, his voice carrying across the stunned silence of the church. "Clara and we've been together for a while now." The shock on Ethan's face deepened. He looked at Clara, his eyes searching for an explanation, a denial. anything to contradict the devastating truth. But Clara couldn't meet his gaze. She looked down, her shoulders shaking. Our mother finally found her voice, her tone laced with disbelief and anger. "Clara, how could you? Ethan is a wonderful man. We all adore him." Our father, usually so stoic, looked utterly heartbroken. He simply shook his head, unable to find any words. Clara finally looked up, her eyes blazing with defiance. "I love Liam," she declared, her voice ringing through the church. "I never really loved Ethan. I just went along with it because it was what everyone expected." The revelation hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. The perfect wedding had imploded in the most spectacular way possible. The guests, who had come to witness a joyous union, were now privy to a messy and heartbreaking betrayal. Ethan, his face ashen, gently released Clara's hand. He looked at her, his eyes filled with a profound sadness. "I don't understand," he said, his voice choked with emotion. I thought we were happy." Clara avoided his gaze. "I'm sorry, Ethan," she mumbled, the words sounding hollow and insincere. The silence that followed was thick with tension. No one knew what to say, what to do. The fairy tale had shattered, leaving behind sharp, jagged pieces of broken hearts and shattered illusions. Finally, Ethan spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "I think I need some time alone," he said, his gaze sweeping over the stunned faces in the church. Without another word, he turned and walked slowly down the aisle, disappearing out the back door. Our parents rushed after him, their faces filled with concern and apology. The guests began to murmur amongst themselves, the carefully orchestrated wedding dissolving into a chaotic mess. I looked at Clara, who was standing there, her arms crossed, a defiant look on her face. Liam stood beside her, his hand resting gently on her arm, offering silent support. "Why, Clara?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why didn't you just tell us? Why put everyone through this?" Clara shrugged, her eyes hard. "It wasn't your business, Scarlett." "Not my business?" I repeated, my voice rising in disbelief. "He's marrying my sister. Of course it's my business." "You're just jealous," Clara spat, her voice filled with venom. "You've always been jealous of me." "Jealous?" I scoffed. "Clara, I was trying to protect Ethan. He didn't deserve to be lied to." "He would have found out eventually," Liam interjected, his voice calm but firm. "We were planning to tell him after the wedding." "After the wedding?" I exclaimed. "Seriously? You were going to go through with the ceremony and then break his heart?" Clara glared at me. "It's not your life, Scarlett. You don't understand." "No, Clara," I said, shaking my head sadly. "I don't think I do." The reality of the situation began to sink in. Clara had been living a lie, leading two men on, all for the sake of appearances. And Liam, though seemingly unaware of the full extent of her deception, had still played a part in it. Our parents returned, their faces grim. "Ethan is devastated," our mother said, her voice heavy with disappointment. "He can't believe what has happened." Our father simply shook his head again, his eyes filled with a deep sadness. "This is a disaster, Clara," he said, his voice barely audible. Clara remained unrepentant. "I told you, I love Liam. I can't help how I feel." "But you could have been honest," I pointed out, my voice weary. "You could have saved everyone a lot of pain." Clara just shrugged again, her gaze fixed on Liam. The wedding, of course, was off. The guests, sensing the tension and awkwardness, began to quietly file out of the church. The beautiful decorations, the carefully chosen flowers, the elaborate cake, all now seemed like a cruel mockery of the events that had unfolded. Our parents insisted that we all go back to the house. The ride home was silent and strained. Once there, the tension in the air was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Our mother retreated to her room, her sobs echoing softly through the house. Our father sat in the living room, staring blankly ahead, a picture of utter dejection. Clara and Liam sat on the couch, holding hands, seemingly oblivious to the devastation they had caused. I couldn't bear to be in the same room as them. I went up to my room, closed the door, and sank down onto my bed. The events of the day replayed in my mind, a chaotic jumble of emotions, shock, anger, sadness, and a strange sense of vindication. I had known something wasn't right, and my instincts had been correct. Later that evening, our father knocked gently on my door. I opened it to find him standing there, his eyes red-rimmed. "Scarlett," he said, his voice hoarse. I wanted to apologize. We should have listened to you. We were so caught up in Clara's happiness that we didn't see what was really happening." His words surprised me. It was rare for our father to admit he was wrong. "It's not your fault, Dad," I said softly. "Clara made her own choices." "But we enabled her," he said, shaking his head. "We always gave her everything she wanted, never questioning her motives. Maybe if we had been more balanced in our attention." His voice trailed off, filled with regret. I put my hand on his arm. "Dad, what's done is done. We just need to figure out how to move forward." He looked at me, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Do you think things can ever go back to normal?" I hesitated. "I don't know, Dad. A lot has happened today. But maybe with time." He nodded slowly, a sad smile touching his lips. "Thank you, Scarlett, for telling the truth." He gave my arm a squeeze and then turned and walked away. I watched him go, a wave of exhaustion washing over me. The day had been emotionally draining, and the future felt uncertain and complicated. The next few weeks were a blur. Clara and Liam moved in together, seemingly unfazed by the chaos they had unleashed. Our parents were heartbroken and furious, their relationship with Clara strained to the breaking point. Ethan, thankfully, had a strong support system of family and friends, and he slowly began the process of healing. As for me, I found myself in a strange position. I was the one who had exposed the truth, the one who had inadvertently ruined the perfect wedding. Some people praised me for my honesty, while others whispered behind my back, accusing me of being jealous and vindictive. But deep down, I knew I had done the right thing. The truth, however painful, was always better than a lie built on deception. Life in Willow Creek slowly began to return to some semblance of normalcy. Our parents started to heal, their anger towards Clara gradually softening into a quiet sadness. They even started spending more time with me, perhaps realizing that they had taken me for granted for too long. One afternoon, a few months later, I was at the coffee shop, reading a book, when Liam walked in. He looked hesitant, his eyes scanning the room until they found me. He approached my table, a nervous smile on his face. "Scarlett," he said softly, Can I talk to you for a minute?" I nodded, closing my book. He sat down across from me, fidgeting with his coffee cup. "I just wanted to say thank you," he said, his gaze meeting mine, "for what you did at the wedding. It wasn't easy, but you did the right thing." I shrugged. "I just told the truth, Liam." "I know," he said, "and I'm grateful." I had my suspicions about Clara, but I didn't want to believe them. You gave me the courage to face reality. "What about you and Clara?" I asked cautiously. He sighed. "It's complicated. We love each other, but the way things happened, it's hard. There's a lot of hurt and mistrust." I nodded, understanding. Starting a relationship based on deception was never going to be easy. "I also wanted to apologize," he continued, his voice sincere, "for everything that happened years ago when we were in high school. I wasn't fair to you." A wave of unexpected emotion washed over me. It had been so long ago, but his words still held a certain weight. "It's okay, Liam," I said, a small smile touching my lips. We were young. We talked for a while longer, about the past, the present, and the uncertain future. There was a sense of closure in our conversation, a feeling of finally putting old ghosts to rest. As he got up to leave, he paused and looked back at me. "You know, Scarlett," he said, a thoughtful expression on his face, "you're a lot stronger than you think you are." His words stayed with me long after he was gone. Maybe he was right. Maybe I had been living in Clara's shadow for so long that I hadn't realized my own strength. Life went on in Willow Creek. Clara and Liam eventually moved out of town, seeking a fresh start away from the judgmental eyes of our community. Our parents continued to heal, their relationship with me growing stronger with each passing day.